Hey guys, how's it going? Dudey here. I'm back with another video. Today, it's not a serial killer. Okay? I thought I'd lighten the mood a little bit because it's been very dark on this channel of late, so I thought I'd throw in some time travel spice. More specifically, this is a phenomena known as time slipping. I'm going to give you 3 accounts of time slipping where basically someone has been going along their daily life and have slipped through time momentarily. They are absolutely fascinating. Before I begin though, if you could hit that like button for me, it really helped me out. It lets YouTube know that you enjoy my content so that YouTube can do their job, which is delivering you the content you want to see the most. So if this is what you want to see, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Thank you so much. Okay, let's kick off with Victor Goddard. Now, he was an RAF pilot in the 30s, and this story takes place initially in 1935. Now, this man would go on to be knighted, Sir Victor Goddard. He was an air marshal, and in 1935 he was flying a regular flight in his Hawker Hart biplane. He was on a very regular flight from an airbase in Edinburgh to his home base in Andover in England. A flight he had done many times before. Now, on this particular flight, he decided to go over Drem. Drem is in Scotland, and there is a dilapidated airbase from the First World War. It was discontinued shortly after the First World War because why? We didn't need it. So, as he was flying over, he saw, a airstrip that had been overrun with a bit of nature. It was all weedy, etc. The base itself had been run down, falling apart. Basically, just a disused, dilapidated airbase. Just quickly, if you like dilapidated airbases, me and my girlfriend Maya actually explored one not long ago. So just type in Dudey Rhino RAF base and enjoy the haunted, horrific fun of that.
Did you hear that scream?
Do you want to leave this place? Help. That's always nice to hear.
Oh, you fucker.
How the fuck do we get out of here?
Is that blood? So anyway, he's flying over this airbase in Drem, okay? And then all of a sudden, there is a very bizarre storm. He cannot see where he is going, and he is worried that he is going to crash. But the storm, it's thick, yellowy, browny clouds, not your usual grey, rainy stuff. And all of a sudden, he loses complete control of his plane and begins plummeting to the earth. Now, as he was plummeting to the earth, he broke out of these strange clouds. And all of a sudden, when looking at the Drem airbase, there was lots of life there. It was no longer dilapidated. In fact, it looked like it was in use. But there was a few very odd differences that he did not recognise at all. For example, the RAF mechanics, which usually wear brown overalls, were wearing navy, and the planes, of which there were 4 planes on the runway, were all painted yellow, and the RAF planes were not painted yellow. Certainly not from the bases that he had been to, or any of the RAF planes that he had seen in his career thus far. And there was also a plane there that he didn't recognise. He'd never seen this plane before, which of course could be a thing, it's not to say that he knew every single plane that ever existed, but he didn't recognise this certain plane. Anyway, he then flies back into the storm and then comes out the other side, and everything is back to how it was. Dilapidated, non-existent, no life, overgrown. So when he got back, he reported what he saw, and he told his loved ones, he told everyone around him of this story. Now, whether he was believed or not is obviously another matter. However, what he saw that day was not to come to fruition until 1939 at the outbreak of World War II, where the Drem Air Base was reinstated as an active RAF airbase. The planes were painted yellow, and the RAF uniform was switched from brown to navy. So Victor saw all of these things 4 years before they even happened, which obviously lends a lot of credit to this man's story. There was also a brand new monoplane introduced to the air bases, which is probably what he saw, the plane that he couldn't recognize. So what do we think of that one? Let me know down below. Okay, so this next one is actually quite a relatively modern one. It's the mid-90s and it's in Liverpool. Now, it was a lovely hot day in July of 1996 and this took place on Bold Street in Liverpool. So this centers around Frank and Carol, husband and wife. They went shopping that day and they split off because Carol wanted to go and buy a book from a bookstore and Frank wanted to go get a CD from HMV. Now, for everyone out there that doesn't know what a CD is, it was a physical disc that held music. So whilst he was off getting his CD from HMV, he bumped into a mate of his and that got him chatting for about 20-25 minutes. Now, once his conversation was done, he went and got his CD and then thought, right, I'll head over to the bookstore and meet up with Carol. So he headed over to Bold Street and he had to go up an inclined road. Now, as he did this, he realised that the normally tarmacked, regularly cemented walkway was now cobbled. He also noticed that it was a lot quieter. There wasn't the hustle and bustle of the Liverpool streets. All of a sudden, when he looked around, he realised no one was wearing modern clothing. Everyone looked fresh out of the 50s, the cars, the people. He also noticed that the shops, the signs had all changed. He saw a box van with Kaplan's written on the side. And when he arrived at Dylan's bookshop, the shop that Carol was in, he realised that it wasn't Dylan's bookshop anymore. Instead, it had the signage for Cripps, a women's shoes and handbag store. Now, interestingly, in this story, as he was looking around, he clocked a girl walking into the same shop wearing 90s clothing. He noticed how confused she looked, so he ran over to her, and as he did this, the whole street reverted back to how it was in 1996. So he said to the girl, like, look, I just saw something, did you see the same? And she looked incredibly terrified and concurred the exact same details that he saw. After this, with a little bit of digging, he found out that the store of which was there prior to the bookstore was indeed Cripps Women's Shoes and Handbags, a fact that he claims to genuinely not know before this. The thing that makes this one so interesting is that there was apparently 2 people in this time slip. So what do you think of this one? Okay, the last story I'm going to tell you guys today is a story from Edna Hedges. Now, this story apparently happened on a Roman road, specifically Ermine Street in Swindon, England. So apparently this was in the late 1930s and Edna was riding her bike to her friend's house when all of a sudden there was a very vicious thunderstorm, absolutely bucketing it down, so much rain. So she was getting very wet, and so rather than carrying on all the way to her friend's house and probably being drowned out by all the rain, she stumbled across a thatched roof cottage. So she stopped and knocked on the door, where a very tall and slightly odd looking elderly man answered the door and without saying a word signalled for her to enter the house. Much to Edna's gratitude, there was a burning fire going in the cottage. She sat down. The man didn't say a word to her, but she dried off at the fire. Now, weirdly, she says that the next thing she realised, she was back on the road on her bike. Now, the strangest thing was she doesn't recall ever leaving the cottage. All she recalls is one moment she's in the cottage drying off, the next she's back on her bike on her way to her friend's. Now, she arrives at her friend's house completely dry because by the time she was back on her bike, the storm had subsided. Now, obviously, she explained everything to her friend because it's just very weird. Like, I was in this man's cottage drying off from the thunderstorm outside, then the next thing I'm on this road on my bike again, and I don't remember leaving. It's all very odd. And she says, well, what cottage? There's one cottage on the road that you have cycled down to get here, but it hasn't had anyone in it for 50 years. This cottage is abandoned and dilapidated. The thatched roof was burnt through years back, and there's no way that you could have sought refuge there. But yet she was dry, so she must have sought refuge somewhere. She rode her bike back past the cottage and saw exactly what her friend was referring to. It was indeed damaged, destroyed and dilapidated, not the wonderful inviting cottage with a gentleman inside there to offer her a hot fire to dry herself off with. So had she in fact slipped back through time to when this cottage was inhabited, dried off and then slipped back to her own timeline. The weird thing about this one is somehow she went from being soaked in a thunderstorm to arriving at her friend's house dry. It's very, very odd. What do we think of that one? What do we think of these 3 stories of time slipping? I have to say, literally before today, I didn't even know time slipping was a thing, and now I think it's one of my favourite phenomena. It's so cool. So yeah, time slipping. What do we think? What do we think about the 3 stories? What was your favourite one? Remember to hit that like button, share, subscribe if you want to buy some Atma stuff. It's all linked down below. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you very soon. Sweet one, geese.